Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Arn. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of the Spine Buster, the enforcer himself, Double A, Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you, man?
Top of the morning to you, sir. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Better than I can possibly put into words. It's been a great spring. I'm having fun catching up with you, having fun picking your brain. And it's another Ask Arn Anything. This is my favorite format of the show we do. I really enjoy watching wrestling with you, but when we get to sort of bounce all over the place and cover, I don't know, 50 or 100 different topics a show, that's probably my favorite type of episode. Do you prefer the deep dive on singular shows or just being all over the place with the Q&As?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm operating off of memory on a lot of stuff.
Right.
And I'll go back and watch the show, tell the whole story about the inner workings and what you did, a few weeks before and where you're going to go a few weeks after, and the whole story. This is a standalone deal with the Q&A. We get to they get to ask a question about a subject, and there's usually a answer, a clearly defined answer, even if it's my own opinion. So I love the Q&As, and it gets to involve a lot more of our audience.
Absolutely. And that's the best part. We get to be really interactive here. And of course, you can do live Zooms with Arn and have a video chat with him and pick his brain over at adfreeshows.com. That's also where you get all of our shows early and ad free. Coming up next week, we're talking Over the Limit 2011. 2 weeks after that, it'll be Extreme Rules 2016. 2 weeks after that, Capital Punishment 2011. And I know what you're thinking. Are you guys covering Money in the Bank 2011? Yes, we are. And that is indeed the day that CM Punk won the world title and seemingly left the WWE with it, blowing Vince McMahon a kiss on his way out. Such a monumental moment in WWE history, and we're going to be covering it before you know it. Let's jump into it. Brian Hutton wants to know, when Curt Hennig joined the Four Horsemen, did you know he was going to turn on the group at Fall Brawl at the time?
I'm not sure anybody knew.
Yeah.
I think there was so much sentiment around my retirement because I have a feeling, people retire all the time, but I think everybody understood that, there had been enough time between my surgery and when I said goodbye that night in Columbia that they knew this was the real thing. And it was very emotional for wrestling fans, and because they knew that they had seen me wrestle for my last time, and they believed it, and it was an opportunity. We always look at that in our business. When something gets over, when you got a hot baby face, man, let me get some heat on him. Well, in this situation, I don't think it was planned, but I think between the reaction that got that night and that week at the office when they're kicking stuff around, somebody brought it up and said, man, wouldn't this be a kick in the ass? And it was all about the NWO at the time. They were they were what we were going with as a company, and they were red hot in the industry. And after this happened, they really flared up.
Troy Roberts wants to know, we know Arn delivers the best spine buster, but is there anyone he dreaded giving it to, either because of inexperience or the size of the other wrestler? And as a segue, who's the largest wrestler he's ever given one to?
Vader.
Vader's the biggest guy?
Yeah, and he was really big at the time. Of course, it had no effect as he ended up beating Rick and I in a handicap match. So I think it probably just pissed him off.
Yeah, I could see that.
I could see that too. No, believe it or not, the only time that the thing that I remember the spine buster going south would be when a guy came off the ropes and his legs would be in between mine instead of wrapping himself around me, which is the key, so that I can dip under him and pick him up. If his legs are inside mine, it's impossible. And as we rotate and as I land, I'm going to do a nutter on his knees. That's happened a couple of times due to inexperienced guys. And thank God it wasn't on television. If it was, I think we had them pull it out. It was just once or twice. They really were bad. I don't think it ever made TV. It could have, maybe not, but because you can't fix it. There's no way to fix that.
A few weeks ago, I took a road trip with Cassio Kid and Dave Silva. And Cassio got tickled and started thinking how hilarious it would be, the visual of you giving a spine buster to Dave Silva. But then he said, well, Arn's retired, so we'd probably need to have Dave jump off of a trampoline, get a running start or a waddle start, whatever, bounce off the trampoline. And then he started to do an Arn Anderson impression saying, if he can get up there, I could turn him. And I don't know why, but Cassio Kid's hillbilly accent trying to do an Arn Anderson, explaining that if Silva could get airborne, you could still turn him, made us laugh for about an hour.
And it's 100% correct. If Big Dave can do all of it, I'll just write him down.
Tremendous. This is a fun question here from Troy Roberts. He says, Arn has worked with wrestlers from both the power plant and the performance center, and I would assume he has spent time at both. Which does he think is better prepared wrestlers for in-ring work? And how does that compare to the training he and other guys received in the past? So this is interesting, sort of an institutional approach to training wrestlers as opposed to going to school for a little bit and then just working spot shows 7 days a week. And I guess there really is no substitute for working in front of a crowd. But talk to us a little bit about the difference, as far as you can tell, about the performance center and the power plant.
Well, they both taught fundamentals, I think, which is the most important thing. They were getting more days a week than if you were just a guy that, like me, that got Ted Allen to break him in. I might have had, I might have had 12 to 15 days of training before I was on television. But after I did a couple of TVs, and then Ted started getting me booked at little spot shows. Until you're in front of a live crowd that's going to give you live kickback and feedback, there's no better training tool than that. If you're just in a school like the power plant with no fans, just the other students, or if you're, at NXT, if you're just performing for each other, you're not getting a true idea of what's working and what's not.
Right.
So I would put, even if you got 50 people in the crowd, it's a better learning experience than being in a school. But you've got to be somewhere with somebody that can teach you fundamentals. If you don't know how to lock up right, you can't grab a headlock, or you can't do an arm drag, you can't take a guy and go behind him and waist lock him and take him down and ride him a little bit. If you don't have some physical athletic skills, if you just skip over that to get to the big stuff, you're going to catch yourself in a lot of trouble when you start trying to have a 15-minute match.
these days, are there wrestling schools that you would sort of co-sign and endorse?
Um, I would say Tom Pritchard, not ever being there, would be a great coach. I would think Ricky Morton would be a great coach. I would say actually where Brock got his feet wet, Lodi's school here in Charlotte. He's a tremendous patient coach and he works on the fundamentals. Those three I could probably account for.
Here's Chico Maevia's question. Boy, I feel like this is the topic that will never end. We know the total disdain that Arn has for cheese on burgers. How does Arn feel about pineapple on pizza? Does he have any other controversial food takes he can share?
If you can throw a pizza like a frisbee, if you brought me a pizza with pineapple on it, I would request the door.
You ever hear some of my commercials and think to yourself, that sounds too good to be true. That's probably malarkey. Here's the deal, man. It's real. Just ask Jason up in North Branch, Minnesota. He left us a 5-star review for our work over at SaveWithConrad.com. He had this to say: my fellow wrestling fans and podcast listeners, Conrad's message is real. This process is very easy. Believe me, I've refinanced twice in the last 12 months. If the need ever arises again, without hesitation, I would make the call. Thank you, Conrad, and especially thank you, Derek. When you guys are in Minnesota, give me a shout. I'd love to buy you each a drink. We helped Jason save some cash and get an even better deal than he got somewhere else before, and you can do it too right now. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but it's worth another look. I'm telling you, what have you got to lose? Wouldn't you just like to have that peace of mind of knowing you've got the best deal for your family? Well, that's what my family can do for you right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Being open and whiz it across the street. Who the hell eats pineapple on pizza?
Right. I agree.
Here's the deal. Sausage, ground beef, mushrooms, onions, thin crust, light on the sauce.
I like that. Sounds pretty good.
Feel me?
Yeah, I'm with it.
Place here in Charlotte, Brooklyn Pizza. Best pizza I've ever ate. Incredible. Because it's got enough meat and it's thin crust. It's not, doesn't have the sauce overwhelming everything. Tremendous.
Let's do another one here about sports events. Tyler Dunn wants to know if you could attend any iconic sports event from the past, what would it be? He's not asking a wrestling question. Football, baseball, basketball, the Olympics, whatever.
I would have loved to have seen Ali and Frazier if I could have been on the third or fourth row for their trilogy. Would have been incredible.
Unbelievable.
And follow the whole story, start to finish.
Chip Maxey wants to know, had the Horsemen never formed in 88 and you and Ole just continued to be Rick's cousin, where do you think your career would have gone? Would it have changed anything?
Yeah, I think JJ and Tully, that addition was huge. It helped really button up the Horseman deal. I would say Tully was probably, because he was there longer, the real core of the Horsemen. Tully would have been that. Ole was a huge part as far as giving us credibility off the get-go and giving me credibility off the get-go. But he was at the end of his career, and he made that pretty clear when he came back that he wasn't going to be full-time and he wasn't going to wrestle for years. But he helped give us a launching pad that made me credible. Walking into basically Gene Anderson's spot was pretty stout in those days, being Ole Anderson's partner, and certainly launched me. And when Tully came in, it was a huge plus.
Drew Landry wants to know, when was the last time you were able to speak with Jimmy Crockett?
At your event in Baltimore.
There you go. Okay.
Funny
So
story.
November.
We actually rode to the airport together.
How was it?
Fine. Conversational. I mean, he was in the front. I was in the back. I wasn't leaning up between the seats or anything. like that, trying to bug him, but basically just small talk.
Here's one, and I think you'll have fun with this. Fernando Diaz says, Arn, pick your poison. You have to have cheese for every meal for 1 year, or you have to dress in Tony Schiavone's wardrobe for a year.
Oh, Lord.
You're picky. I know you hate cheese, but you've seen the shit Schiavone wears.
Yeah, it's pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
The color scheme is really bad. The other day, he came to TV and it looked like he had on green hospital scrubs for the pants. And the shirt was long sleeve with the zipper that comes about to right there.
Yeah.
And it was Pepto-Bismol pink. Atrocious.
I think one of the lines he's told us, you said before, was Schiavone, you dressed like an Easter egg and you're shaped like one too.
Could have been. And I noticed he zinged me. I was thumbing through some of y'all's commentary, and he said that I was smuggling watermelons into TV these days underneath my shirt. So let's don't think I'm picking on Schiavone here. He will fire up and fight back.
Yes, he will.
So other than have to wear his get up, which is going to be extra rotund, and the taste on the colors is atrocious, I guess I just have to choke down a gob of cheese.
Yeah, I knew you'd go with cheese. You have to.
Yeah. Actually, I don't despise cheese. I just don't like it.
It overpowers the burger. I get it.
When you have a sandwich or a burger, macaroni and cheese, believe it or not, right out of the box. Kraft, I'm all right with that. Aaron makes a broccoli and cheese casserole.
Oh, that sounds good.
It kicks ass, but there's so much chicken in it and a fair amount of broccoli, it overwhelms the cheese. You taste the cheese, but not so much as you do the chicken and the broccoli. See where I'm going with that?
I do.
I think a lot of people confuse that it's just a flat, no cheese on nothing.
You want to taste the meat. I got you.
Exactly. I'm a carnivore.
D42NO says, Arn, would you ever consider starting your own territory promotion?
God, no. Are you kidding me? Why, so everybody could come in and bitch at me about the payoffs? No, it takes more experience and patience and upfront money than I am willing to put out there.
JDBLM wants to know, if you could change the finish of any of your matches, would you? And if so, which one and why?
Yeah, I would have gotten counted out on the Renegade match, not showing up due to lack of interest.
I love that. You can hear the Renegade fan club calling.
Phone call, somebody already raising hell at me.
DDF Bolt wants to know, what was the one feud you missed out on having? Is there one guy in particular you wish you could have had a feud with that for whatever reason the timetable just didn't work out?
Let's see. I would have loved to work a program with Kurt Hennig.
Yeah, that would have been great.
When we were both at our best and both healthy, I would have loved that. That's what I missed.
Mayhem wants to know, can you talk about John Cena at Extreme Rules 2011 being sent out to announce the news of bin Laden being, quote, caught and compromised to a permanent end? Osama bin Laden. That had to be a Vince call? Was he told what to say? As Cena's agent, did you know about this segment?
No, this would have just been something between them and, in that never ending push to have John be the ultimate baby face of the company. He would have felt that would have been John's, place to go out and let us know that somebody put a bullet in bin Laden's head.
it is weird that it was announced during a wrestling show, but I mean, I guess it was a major moment for America and something that Vince clearly felt strongly about.
Well, and we all did. Let me
Yeah.
tell you something. We were on the road for 9/11, and I'm not sure anything has ever shocked me, caused me to think a lot deeper than I had ever in my life, and asked questions internally to myself. Where do we go from here? I mean, if you go back and if there's ever a 9/11 special or something, I go back just to remind myself on what a day that was. Fit Finley called me at 9 o'clock in the morning. He goes, Arn, you watching TV? I went, what time is it, Fit? Hell no, I ain't up yet. He said, well, get up. We're under attack. I cut on the news, and it was just so surreal that to this day, I don't know if I've got my head wrapped around what all went down that day. It's so much to digest, So him getting it, he was the mastermind of it apparently, and for him to finally get his, we're all behind that for damn sure.
Let's talk about the first time you saw someone wrestle. Midas the Beast says, who was the most impressive wrestler you saw in person for the first time? Meaning you never saw this person live before, and when you finally did, you were just blown away.
Rocky Johnson.
Really?
And it wasn't even about the match. I was in Rome. I was a teenager, probably 17, 18. I'm not sure how old I was, 15. Could have been younger than that. But he walked in the gym in Rome Thursday night, had on a tank top, pair of sweats, carrying his bag. I'd never seen a physique like that in person. It blew me away. Nobody looked like that in Rome that I'd ever seen. It was when he was in his best, probably shape of his career. And he just looked incredible. And it just had I want to say it was younger. I want to say maybe 14, but it's what inspired me to start working out. I want to look like him. Obviously, never got there, but it was a goal. He looked just that impressive to me. Floored me that a human being could look like that.
Talk to me a little bit about territory guys. It's become a bit of a discussion. I asked Bruce, I asked JR. Now Lindsay wants me to ask you. Who do you think is the last great territory guy?
Well, you're going to have to qualify that a little bit for me.
Well, in terms of, maybe they worked for Don Owens, and they worked for Fritz, and they worked in Atlanta, and they worked in Charlotte, and they worked in Florida, and they worked in Minneapolis. Like when I asked that question to Bruce, he thought it was probably the Undertaker because he sort of bounced around and worked for everybody. And when I asked JR, he said it's got to be Steve Austin. I would argue that it's probably Ric Flair. I mean, he was the last touring NWA world champion. So he had to work all the different territories because the NWO was still a thing. I wonder if you have a different answer. Maybe there's another name we haven't thought of. Flair and Austin and Taker.
Well, Flair obviously would have been the most traveled champion.
Yeah.
To go to every territory that was still around in, say, 1980. There were still a lot of territories around, and he would hit them all as the champion. I think probably Terry Funk would be pretty well traveled.
Yes, he would.
And be in demand with just about anywhere he wanted to go. I think that's a name from the past. Yeah, let's go with Terry Funk.
One more from Lindsay. Do you have a proudest moment in the business, either as an in-ring performer or as a producer? Or if you had to think back and think about this one moment that stands out above all else, it would be this. What would that be?
Well, believe it or not, all things being relative and what they are, getting put in the Hall of Fame and getting to be on stage with that group of guys and Dusty putting us in when it was my turn to speak, I can't explain the feeling that audience gave me. I didn't expect it. I would have never anticipated it. They were so kind, and it was pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. Because as far as I could see, up to the roof of that place, which was packed, which was an awesome class, obviously, because that place was packed. They were all standing and clapping and doing the four, and it just for them to think of you in that capacity and your company to think enough of you to put you in the Hall of Fame. If you just base it on that and to see it was a popular choice by the fans, pretty special moment. And my family was there and within eye shot where I could see them and see their reaction. It was pretty emotional.
Joe has a question that a lot of fans will be interested in since things are starting to get back to normal. If you put yourself in a fan's shoes, would you rather go to a house show or a TV taping? And also, would you rather sit ringside on the floor or in the stands or in an upper deck?
First row of risers.
Yeah.
Because now you're just looking straight. Sorry about that. You're looking straight at the ring. You're not having to look up.
Yeah.
You're not having to look down. If your line of vision is comfortable, because I got a bad neck, anything I can sit and watch without having to bend my neck too much. But that's also just a good seat from your line of sight. And house shows, I think, are a different animal. You have a beginning, a middle, and an end to however many matches that you're going to put out there. If you're going to put out 8 or 9 matches, they all have a beginning, middle, and end. It's not just a piece like you get at TV, if that makes sense.
Here's one from Kyle Allen. He says, when you and Tully left the NWA for WWE, if you had brought Ric Flair and JJ Dillon with you, do you think the WWF could have presented you guys as outsiders, much like the NWO would 10 years later? Would that storyline have worked?
Probably shouldn't have brought us in as outsiders. They should have probably have just brought us in for who we were. Ladies and gentlemen, my God, you're not going to believe this, but we have procured the services of the 4 Horsemen. And that would have been a red hot angle and mixed us in with those guys. Whatever combination it was.
Eric wants to know, when Dennis Condrey left, was anyone else seriously considered to fill his spot in the Midnight Express besides Stan Lane? While I love Stan in the role, I wonder how the team would have looked with a different partner for Bobby.
I don't know who made that decision, but that sounds like Cornette might have suggested it, and Dusty went with it just from their days and possibly in Memphis together. The thing about it is Stan was babyface. Cornette and Bobby definitely heels. So it was, he looked great, looked the part. But I think Stan was more comfortable being a babyface. So I don't know if anybody else was considered, but pretty quickly they had that void filled. That was a weird deal. We had a show one day that did real good. We went to the airport. I think it was somewhere in Florida, believe it or not. And the next day, Dennis was gone. None of us had heard a word. He just fell off the planet. And we're making money.
Right.
This was during a hot time with the company.
John says, everyone, including yourself, always speaks so highly of Brad Armstrong, with his only limitation being his mic skills. Was there ever a consideration to team him with someone like yourself who's great on the mic? I really would have loved a AA tag team, Anderson and Armstrong.
I would have been honored to have been Brad's partner, but I was a rotten babyface. And I don't know that Brad would have been a good heel. So, uh, and I just looked at, I think Brad never finding himself behind the mic and having his own identity was what held him back. Partially, I think Brad was also one of those happy go lucky guys that was just glad to be there, just wanted to go out, tear the house down with whoever it was you booked him against, and just enjoy himself. I don't know that he was driven to get a top spot. He just loved his life and enjoyed his life and enjoyed going to the gym and working out and, enjoyed wrestling and just enjoyed life. And he was, at the time that I knew him, he wasn't married, didn't have any children. And for a single guy back in those days, it was pretty damn fun existence. And I think he was just content with his position.
Here's one that we've never touched on before. George McGaffin says, if Arn started wrestling as a rookie today, what things would he change and what would he keep the same?
I would keep everything exactly like it was and is. My style was derived from an inability to do anything athletic. I just couldn't do a lot of stuff. I've never thrown a drop kick. I don't do the dives out to the floor. I don't do the La Planches and all that high risk stuff. I just don't do it because I can't. And I'm smart enough to know I'm not going to kill myself and kill somebody else because I tried something stupid. My style, again, came from the things that I thought I could do athletically, and that made sense to me, and I could take care of the guy that I was in the ring with and not end up crippling him because I tried something stupid. So what you see now is what you would have seen 25 years ago. Same style wrestler.
Sanji says, I live in Dallas, Texas, and I want your take and thoughts as a fan and a performer on world-class championship wrestling in its prime. Of course, the Von Erichs and the Freebirds. What do you think?
Well, when we were going to Atlanta TV, when I first started and I was doing jobs before I had went to Pensacola for the 3 weeks for Bob Armstrong and then to Bill Watts. I mean, I was just down there to do TV. And it was the first time they had back in the offices at TBS Studios, they had televisions all over the place back there. And I saw world class, 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it came on. I saw their show for the first time, and it was a house show TV. And no one had ever done that. They were the first. And seeing all those people and them taking that far away shot with the hard camera with like those Von Erichs or the Freebirds coming down the aisle and the fan reaction. I mean, they literally, were all over those guys. And the arena was packed. The clarity of the show was so good. It was trend setting. It was HD before there was HD. It was so good. The production values on that show was just incredible. And it made you stop. I'd love to hear what the numbers were from that era, but it was different from studio TV or anything like that, for damn sure.
Brett with 1T wants to know, do you have any good stories of the Mulkey brothers and Mulkey Mania?
Well, Brett with 1T, the Mulkey brothers have got to be the toughest sumbitches, toughest brothers that ever lived. Because, man, they would come down there and some guys would shellac them and they would take some of the god-awfulest bumps. They didn't get dropped on their head or anything, but they got to not be physical guys. You could just tell they weren't physical, real athletic guys. They had to be tough because, man, they got thumped. They got hit hard. They got slammed a lot. They got bumped a lot. And they just kept coming back. And I guess it was just the desire to be in the business. And, I did something one time with one of them in a match after I got established to where I knew I could get away with it. I locked up with one of them and backed him in the ropes. And I just kind of broke clean and just looked at him and smiled like, you piece of shit. What are you doing in here? And I had him slap the shit out of me on television. And it shocked me so bad. He got back to his corner. He got away with it, which took the audience to another level. That had never been done for those guys. And the audience it got interesting all of a sudden. What in the hell did I just say? Of course, he ended up getting mauled shortly thereafter. But it just lets you know that if you know what you're doing in there, you listen to the crowd, you feel the crowd, do something different. Make yourself fun to watch. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody would have allowed that. None of your other top guys. But it worked, and you can only get away with it one time. And I did, and it was cool. They were nice kids. They just wanted to be wrestlers.
SL Production Services wants to know, hi, Arn. I've always wondered why years ago, like when you first started in the business, the ring ropes were always so loose. Eventually, the company started to tighten them up. Do you know why they were loose and floppy back then?
I never actually saw any that were loose or floppy. They might have been made out of different, I was actually ropes with tape over them. They've since went to cable and all that stuff, but I never was in one that was, when I got in for my match, was actually floppy. You couldn't have hit them, and if you did, God knows where it would have kicked you off to. Now, you may have seen some that I didn't see, but I never ran into any that were that bad, because that's just dangerous.
I feel weird even asking this, but the guy asks every week, so I feel like I have to. Did you like to blade? Did you hate blading? Any good blading stories?
I didn't like it. Hell no.
Who likes to cut their face?
Other than Bobby Jaggers, I don't know anybody that likes to cut themselves. Shit hurt. And it took, walking around, going to your kid's school, to one of his games and having to have your head taped shut was not pleasant. Made you a little bit, in those days, it was like if you cut yourself really deep one time and didn't get it sewed up, you had a gift the rest of the week or the next 2 weeks. You could just bust it open, and you didn't have to cut yourself anymore. I did not enjoy it. Anybody says they did are full of it, except Bobby Jaggers.
Bobby Jaggers had quite the forehead too.
Yeah, I don't want to look like Bobby Jaggers. No offense. As ruggedly handsome as I am, I would not want to look like Bobby Jaggers.
This one's from Francis Reyes. Do you have any fun UK WWE stories you can share?
Yeah, they have the best dessert in England that has ever been concocted. Now, this will perk you up. Okay?
I'm ready.
It's called banoffee pie. So what it is, it's like a banana pudding, but it's got butterscotch and it forms this crust with graham crackers. You put the butterscotch on it. It is the most unbelievable dessert on the planet. Get Megan to look up a recipe and make it for you. It's like a butterscotch banana pudding. And I know you're a banana pudding guy.
I am, but I'm not a butterscotch fan. So you
will be.
Okay.
Trust me. Have I steered you wrong yet?
No, you haven't. I mean, except for the whole cheese thing. We're going to have to work on that. Dan Potts wants to know, Arn, what did you think of the Battle Bowl concept? And do you think it could work today?
Battle Bowl. Refresh me. What was that? Three rings? What the
Now, this
hell?
is where they drew random partners.
Oh yeah.
That's
Uh,
terrible.
no, because it just for one night to being uncomfortable with who your partner was, match after match after match, it's like going back to the same hole. It's the same story. You have all these partners for a night, right?
Yep.
And the only story you can really tell is I'm either happy with who my partner is
Or I'm not.
or I'm not. That could get boring quickly.
E-Town says if JJ hadn't been the Horsemen's manager, who would have been a good fit?
Probably wouldn't have had one.
You wouldn't have needed one. I mean, typically they were there for mouthpieces and all you guys could talk. So
But we could definitely pull that off. Not to say he wasn't an integral part. He really was. Very important. I've said many times, J.J. Dillon is as much a horseman as anybody. He was as much a part of us as any of us were. Without him, I don't think we would have went with anybody else.
really interesting question here from Jerry. When you were traveling with the Horsemen, who did the driving and who was the worst driver?
Me. And if you listen to my family, me, which means part two. I was a terrible driver. I don't think I'm a bad driver. I actually think I'm an excellent driver.
Rick is not a good driver.
Whoever let him drive.
Well, I made the mistake of riding in the car with him exactly one time. And that was one too many.
Yeah, he never drove when I was in the car. I always drove my whole career. You know, one of the veterans told me one time, and I don't even remember who it was. He said, "Be captain of your own ship. It takes a little effort. Go get the rent a car, have it in your name so that you can come and go as you please. You'll have the last say on who does what. And if you're going to get killed in the middle of the night by having a car wreck because you fell asleep, let it driving, not because you were asleep in the passenger seat and then the driver went to sleep and everybody got killed." I know it's a little bit morbid, but I just prefer to drive. To this day, if we go on a trip, I drive, me and the family.
Oyvind wants to know, did Arn have any interactions with Yokozuna?
Never met him.
Danny Fullpint wants to know, in your prime, how many cold beers could you crush in a session?
On a normal night, just making a normal trip where
What about it? Let's stretch it. We're gonna do a European flight. You're gonna fly from here to England.
I would be drinking probably because they'll cut you off.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could get cut off.
They will cut you off if they feel you've had too many to drink. So if you start slugging them down pretty quickly, you're probably going to be good for about 3 hours, I would say. Of the 8 hours, you could probably get away with, maybe a dozen beers without throwing a red flag up that, hey, this guy's back there power drinking.
Come on now.
If you're going to go airplanes.
Okay. Well, at a bar, you can beat 12. Come on.
You said airplanes.
All right. But you sort of act like, well, just a normal night. A normal night for anybody is a couple, I guess, if you're just going to go out and have dinner with drinks. But we're talking about, hey, man, let's get tore down. Let's go.
Let's just say we start out, we go to the gym, and I'm a young man now, and we go to the beach, and we're off that night, I'd probably drink 12, 15 at the beach, probably shower, and if we went out that night, I'd probably switch over to sea breezes.
There you go.
It's already had that bloat with the beers. And I might drink 6 or 8 sea breezes.
By the way,
Doubles.
A sea breeze double is double shot of vodka, cranberry juice, and grapefruit juice. Do I have that right?
2 parts grapefruit, 1 part cranberry, and loaded up with the Stoli vodka. Squeeze a lime.
Why is Stoli your go-to?
Don't know. I don't know. It's just one that I had one time and I liked the way it tasted and just stuck with it. Forget a kamikaze. This is the order, which threw a lot of bartenders off. We'd like 10 triple straight up chilled Stoli kamikazes. And that's how we ordered them.
Michael Eldridge wants to know, who does he think no-sold worse, Goldberg or the Ultimate Warrior?
Probably Warrior, because he did it on his own and he made the decision on what he sold and what he didn't. Goldberg was just told, don't sell nothing.
I got you.
That's pretty easy formula.
Michael Eldridge says, does Arn think that the Bunkhouse Stampede pay-per-views were the nail in the coffin for Jim Crockett?
So he's not a fan, obviously.
I don't think he likes the Bunkhouse Stampede concept. Did you?
Just from a standpoint that when it involved us, it was different because our matches were all kept in the ring. We wouldn't fight out in the crowd and do all the crazy stuff until you had a format like this, like a Bunkhouse Stampede. That was the one time you would see us in that match. I mean, we'd do a little bit of stuff on the floor, but we never went into the crowd because in those days you get stabbed or knocked in the head or somebody bust something over your head or cut you or whatever. You didn't go out in the crowd in those days and fight, except for these rare occasions like a Bunkhouse Stampede. And I didn't mind it. It was exciting. The only downside to it, I think, is you would get crazy reactions because some people over there were reacting to what's going on over there. Something different would happen over here and you'd get a different reaction. And it was like a hodgepodge that didn't really match up. Make sense?
Yeah.
The good guys are getting the advantage over here. They're cheering. Bad guys have got Dusty down over here and they're booing the shit out of you. It was like a little bit of a weird reaction.
Here's one. Mike Rubin wants to know, is it true that Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan had a contentious relationship in WCW when Roddy?
Legendary. The word was that Piper didn't like Hogan. That's for sure. Whether or not Hogan liked Piper or not, I don't know. But there was always, the story that those guys really did not get along at all.
Did you ever go party and have some beers with Piper or Hogan? What was that?
No, Flair would, and Hogan was always with the baby faces, but Flair drank with Roddy. I never did. By the time he was in the territory that I was already an agent. Different lifestyle.
Dustin King says, in the past, you've talked about wearing University of Georgia red and white. It always seems to be the unofficial colors of the Horsemen. Why did the last version switch to blue and yellow? Was it because of the NWO Wolfpack? I never really considered there being official colors to the Horsemen. Were there?
No, I just like red and black, red and white. Just for a color scheme for tights and boots. I just like the way it looked.
Let's talk about current creative. Matt Turk wants to know, Arn, how often were your ideas accepted by the creative team and how often were they rejected during your tenure with WWE?
Once I got settled in and probably after a couple of years of being in the meetings, I was accepted. A lot of my ideas were received very well. Probably the last 5 years, not so much.
Pierce Marble wants to know, what's the biggest bar tab you remember picking up during your wrestling days?
Oh, gosh. Something ridiculous. Rick's friend, Bruce MacArthur.
I know Bruce.
Family of the Works Corporation in Chicago, pretty big deal.
The General.
We went to Miami and we stayed at the Coconut Grove Marriott, and we were all in there drinking after the show. And keep in mind, the general had taken us out on his, I want to say it was like 100-foot yacht.
Wow.
I mean, it was something like Lyndon Johnson or something. There was a story that he had owned it at one time or something. We're talking about the president.
Right.
When we flew in on a private plane one time, he had a Winnebago out on the runway to pick us up. We could see him from the air standing on top of the Winnebago, waving us in. You know how much stroke that's got at O'Hare Airport to be able to pull that off? He had done just some just crazy things for us. You know, took us out to dinner at Gibson's, picked up the tab a dozen times. So I was going to play a big shot. Him and Rick were over there drinking, and a couple of guys were drinking with. I think Barry, maybe. I don't know if maybe JJ. So I went over and I said, guys, General, I appreciate all you've done for us. You're a good man. You know, they're all drinking on the same tab. I said, let me get this tab. To his credit, Rick said, Arn, don't. You don't need to do that. We got it. I said, oh, look, I make a pretty fair living.
Right.
I pick up a damn tab for the general, and I picked that thing up and looked at it, and I want to say it was $900. I have never wanted to hand something back to somebody so bad in my life. How am I going to explain this to Mama?
I was thinking the same thing. Like, you're going to swipe that, and then she's going to say, how did you spend $900 at a bar?
Yeah, it was because they were drinking big time expensive drinks. Flair was doing his thing, buying the kamikazes. And to be honest with you, I had a brain fart and some nerve damage for just a moment and said, give me that. I'll take care of it. I have never felt stupider in my entire life. I lay in all night. Boy, did I fuck up. Excuse the F-bomb.
No, we're good with it.
It was a one-time shot. Never happened since. Never happened before that.
We've heard over the years that, in pro sports, they haze some of the rookies that same way. So veterans will, make a mandatory team dinner, no coaches and no office personnel allowed. Everybody's got to go. Everybody's ordering the steak and the lobster and the whole deal and getting the fancy bottles of wine. And then they just hand the bill all on one to whatever rookie got the big signing bonus. Was that part of maybe wrestler court? We've heard about guys having to buy a case of beer here or there, but would there be times where somebody would be sentenced, if you will, to pick up the tab a little bit?
On a much smaller scale. I'm assuming some of these NFL steak dinners was in the tens of thousands.
I would think.
Usually if somebody got wrestler's court and they got convicted, it would be, like overseas, you would buy a couple of cases of beer or something for the bus or whatever the deal would be. Nothing to the extreme like the other places.
Well, we're going to take it to the extreme next week when we jump back in time and talk about a pay-per-view from 10 years ago. If you've got a question, or maybe we didn't get to your question today, feel free to tweet us. It's at The Arn Show. Use hashtag Ask Arn. And we'll be back next week with Over the Limit 2011. Arn, this is an interesting time in the WWE, to say the least. And I'm looking forward to it, man. Anything in particular you remember about that show? Or
who's the main event of that show?
If you recall, it's an I Quit match with John Cena and The Miz.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
I think you probably blocked it out, but I think the one right before that is the one we'll have the most fun with. Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole. This was a kiss my foot match. It was probably something that Lou Thez would have been jealous of.
Guys, we're not in the wrestling business. It don't get no more wrestling than kiss my foot match. Right?
Yeah, that's some Memphis stuff right there, for real.
Big time.
Well, we never really talked about that, but when people say that's some Memphis stuff, obviously a kiss my foot match is an example, but Elaborate on what that means to some of our younger listeners. A Memphis match.
Well, Tennessee high spots. It was like, oh God, just to say you're in a tag match and your partner is going to whip a guy into the turnbuckle, but he gets reversed and he hits the turnbuckle. You get wind of that. You've seen what happened. They go into it the same way, but you go sailing down the apron and jump up there to block it from him taking the turnbuckle. What you didn't see, because you're the dumbass partner, is your partner reversed it and he ends up whipping the babyface into the corner. You're laying straddle of the top rope and he kicks you in the belly. Got it?
Yep.
Your intention was to block your partner from eating the buckle. Well, your partner ain't the one getting whipped in, which you didn't see. That's a Tennessee high spot. Ha ha. Jimmy Valiant's piss spot. You know the piss spot, the famous piss spot?
I don't know the piss spot.
Jimmy, headlock. Shoot him off, drop down. He drops down beside you. You look around to see where he went. You look over. He's laying right beside you on his belly. You come up to on all fours. He comes up on all fours right beside you. He lifts his leg like a dog peeing on you. That's a Tennessee high spot.
All this and more coming up next week on Arn when we talk about Over the Limit 2011. I got to kiss my foot match, boys and girls. Buckle up. It's going to be fun.
You can pop on the piss spot if you want. You don't have to hold it back.
I just,
you ought to be the heel in that situation.
I'm just wondering, like, hypothetically, let's say you're watching that on TV and a non-wrestling fan walks into the room. How do you explain what you're watching?
Brain damage.
Well, we hope you guys don't have any. We hope you hit the subscribe button, leave us a review, and we'll see you next week, just in time for Over the Limit 2011, right here on Arn. Don't forget, you get all these shows early in shows.com. You can even do live interactive Zooms. Just last month, boy, we had a who's who. We had Thunder Rosa, we had Nick Aldis, we had Dax from FTR, we had Arn, we had JR, we had Tony, we had Eric Bischoff. We had them all. And it's a whole host of characters you don't want to miss. It's more bang for your buck than you can find anywhere else, certainly on Peacock. Check it out. It's adfreeshows.com. He is at The Arn Show. I am at Hey, it's Conrad. And we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here on Arn. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.